The reason my stand is like it is because I need to see. I prefer, actually, that here's what you need to do is this. Is you don't have to look at me. You can look at me. That's good. But I've always said, take your focus off of me and put it on what I'm saying. Concentrate on what I'm saying. That is the major part of what I'm trying to say to you this morning. Thank you for those who are listening. Thank you for being here. We have a house full, a breezeway full almost. You are invited to come to visit us on Sunday morning. There's no problem with that. We have plenty of room that we can make. I thought that if we could get a group of people to come, I thought that maybe through that we could start another fellowship. That was my thinking when we moved over here, that if we had enough people that wanted to support the ministry, and because a lot of churches started from house ministries. But I say there are few and none that want to do that.
We're few.
Oh.
Brother Bill and Charity are a few. And I think last week there were 60 some hits on Facebook, and I need to get on YouTube, and that's okay. If it's just you and me, that's okay too. It helps me to be here. We are in Luke chapter 16 as we continue our study in the book of Luke. How many more chapters do we have? A few more chapters? I'm looking at verse 1 again this morning. Now he was also saying to the disciples, Jesus, he's a parable. There was a rich man who had a manager. And this manager was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And he called him and said to him, "What is this I heard about you? Give an account of your management, for you can no longer be manager." The manager said to himself, "What shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I am not strong enough to dig. I am not strong. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do." And so he had a plan. Verse 3 says, the master, I read verse 3, didn't I? So the idea then is, what's he going to do? The manager said to himself, he is much like he's much like another bad character, the unrighteous judge that we're going to see in verse 18, who said to himself, Luke 18:4 and 5, "Even though I do not fear God or respect man, yet because this widow bothered me, I will give her legal protection. Otherwise, by continually coming, she will wear me out." Luke chapter 18. And as he spoke to himself, this manager, ex-manager, he realized he is on the street corner soon. No job, no money, no home. He squandered it all. And then he crosses off two opinions. He's not going to go to work, and he's not going to beg. So he has become used to a certain level of living, and therefore he's going to seek to present it as the best as he can. A crisis does not make a man, but it shows what a man is made of. Either he's going to stand on the street corners with a sign begging for money, or he's going to find a job of some sort. What shall I do? That's the question that we always should ask ourselves. And Luke uses that question 5 times. So, he said, this is more likely a case of discrimination than disability, as manual labor was beneath his dignity. Matthew Henry conjectures, remember always to be careful to interpreting every detail of every parable. Just don't write in your presupposition of what you think Jesus is saying, or use the parable to illustrate what you want it to say. I am ashamed. Begging was the only form of welfare available in the ancient world. There was no give-outs, handouts. So if you didn't have any money, you'd have to go beg for it. And yet this is even a step below manual labor. And it ultimately reveals his pride. He would not have liked the classic song, as I said last week, ain't too proud to beg. The Pharisees and the Sadducees listened to this sermon, and technically and basically Jesus was writing this to the Pharisees, and yet Ben, the author of this parable, he knew that in 2023 we would be reading this story. And it's just not a parable for then, it's a parable for us today even. Verse 4 says, I know what I shall do, after consideration, so that when I am removed from the management, people will welcome me into their home. Now apparently the boss, the owner, has given him time, which was a mistake, wasn't it? He gave him time to get some things straightened out and clean out his room, so he takes this time. And he is going to do some things that's going to help him in the future. It's how you pronounce it, portfolio? All the investments held by an individual. I know what I shall do. He may be unrighteous, and he was, but he is resourceful, as many unrighteous people can be. Unrighteous people often are more resourceful than Christians are. He had a sudden flash of inspiration. Eureka moment. An epiphany. The solution he came up with would provide all the things he would need: a place to live, he would have income, and he had stature. So he knew. He worked on it. He'd been doing this, and he knew how to do this. Without going into further interpretation, let's look at this. So that when, if not, I am removed from the management of stewardship, people will welcome me into their home. Now, wouldn't it be nice if all these people that are on the street corners, if they could be invited into our homes? So that it reveals his purpose was to propagate his prosperity as best as he could. He is thinking of his future. knowing he is soon out of a job as manager. His scheme involves using his present position to perpetuate his future, and he'll be welcome. My Lord turned me out of my house. I have none of my own to go to. I am acquainted with my Lord's tenants, have done them many good turns while he was manager. And now I will do them one more, which will so obligate them that they will bid me welcome to their house. And the best entertainment they afford, and so long as I live, at least I can have better time. Verse 5, and he summoned each one of his master's debtors. His master's debtors. He's going to his master's debtors. They were indebted to him, not this manager. And he began saying to the first, how much do you owe my master? Let's make a deal, he says. And how much do you owe? How much do you owe? Luke chapter 16 and verse 5. And Jesus now gives two examples of the manager's shrewd handling of the debtors. In essence, what the manager is doing is robbing from the master by renegotiating the terms of the debt to lower the amount the debtor owes the master. Follow me? It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. He's taken his master's money, debt that they owe him, and let's see what he does. Rent was often paid to the landlord, not in money, but in kind. This would have two effects. First, the debtor would be grateful to him. Just be kind to me and you're going to pay your debt. They didn't have money. And much more effective, he had involved the debtor. If worse came to worse, he was now in a strong position to exercise a little judicial blackmail. This Stuart is doing. So in order to get some sense of this, just how clever this was, we must understand that it was legal in Jewish culture to charge interest to fellow Jews. There was no such thing as principal and interest in those days. So they would hide the business interest by hiding it in the loan, so that the principal involved the interest. It was not unknown to charge as much as 100% interest on profitable commodities. So the manager, according to common accepted businesses practice, and was making such surmount loans just like everyone else. The debtors, now these debtors, as the text says, literally means a debt owner. It mentions in the Lord's parable addressed to Simon Peter, to the Pharisees in Luke 7:14 and Luke 15. Debtors is a parable of an unrighteous steward. So these parables indicate a system of credit in the matter of agriculture. In Job 31:37, having taken nothing from the debtor. In Proverbs chapter 29 verse 13, when the creditor and the debtor met together. The word is more expressive than one who owes anything to another. In ancient times, a person may take a loan to avert hunger and loss. Rarely, if ever, was a loan issued for commodity enterprises. So it would seem that as Israel came into contact with the surrounding nations, to give you a little background of what's going on here, debt became increasingly a commercial matter. So the Mosaic Law negotiate clemency towards the poor who were compelled for the time being to become debtors were utterly disregarded. And the poor were oppressed by the rich. Okay? Verse 6. And he said, here's what he said, 100 measure of oil. And he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. 100 measures of oil, he said to him. And he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. He had a debt of 100. And the shrewd manager said, sit down quickly and make it 50. Take your bill, sit down quickly and write 50. And he said, as I said, one by one, the manager is reducing the debt of the debtors. Remember, the manager still has control of the debts at this point, but he will have that control only for a short time, and so adds the instructions to this debtor to act quickly. He had to do it quickly, like today. So the shrewd manager knows he must more swiftly while he still has time and authority. What a lesson for sleepy saints who are sadly failing to redeem the time they have left on earth to win souls, store up treasures, and glorify their Father in heaven. Now, here's a measure. Let's get a little background here. Was just 8 gallons. A measure was 8 gallons. And this was a large debt. They had 875 gallons of olive oils worth 100 denarios, over 3 years' pay for a daily worker. Think about what it would be like to be called into the loan office and the bank and be told that they were cutting your loan in half. Right? Imagine how grateful you would be. We're grateful today if they cut the interest. That could save you a lot of money. By reducing what they were obligated to pay his master, he is saying something. Say, you see what